Hi, my name is Isabel Smith and this is my presentation demonstrating knowledge of the production of Sleeping Beauty and the challenges of presenting this to a modern day audience. Sleeping Beauty, Once Upon an Unconsented Kiss. The fairy tale was released on the 29th of July 1959 in the United Kingdom after being directed by Wolfgang Gritherman, Clyde Jeremy, Eric Lawson and Les Clark under the production of Walt Disney. The premise of the much-loved animated film is that when royalty are blessed with a newborn baby girl, Maleficent, the fairy of evil, storms the celebration where the good fairies are granting their wishes and curses baby Aurora to die on her 16th birthday after pricking her finger on a spindle. Merryweather, the last of the fairies, realises when Maleficent has departed that she hasn't granted her blessing and so changes the curse so that the princess will not die but fall into a deep sleep that can only be broken by true love's kiss. On the surface, Sleeping Beauty is renowned for its inclusivity of women, which can be praised particularly for the time it was released, as women were still seen to be secondary to the male gender. But from research that I have undertaken, this is a very superficial opinion to have on the film, as it presents many challenges to a modern day audience, especially as a parent. The 1959 version of Sleeping Beauty was based upon La Belle au Bois Dormant by Charles Perrault and adapted by Brothers Grimm. There have been significant changes to establish Sleeping Beauty as a children's film, and so its authenticity is questionable from its original form, but arguably the version we all know today isn't any better than the botched attempt at eating the princess's family. I strongly believe that if the 50s version was to be re-released today, that it wouldn't be received as openly, and many parents agree that the popularity of the film wouldn't reach the heights that it is at today, with the overall box office takings being 51.3 million, and 6 million of that was upon first release. In a recent survey from Harper's Bazaar ranking the world's top 27 Disney films, with the most popular being Snow White, there is no mention of Sleeping Beauty, and many credible sources, as listed in my bibliography, suggest that this is down to the lack of current feminism, outdated beauty standards, unrealistic ideology, the lack of consent and education, and the rise of sexual assault over the past few years. With this in mind, generational acceptance has developed so much so that cancel culture is ever growing, and as Rebecca Reed investigates in her Metro article, Like It or Not, Sleeping Beauty has origins in rape culture. There are calls for it to be removed from all major platforms as not to influence children. On the 3rd of March 2021, the abduction, killing and violent rape of Sarah Everard shocked the nation, fueling women around the UK to stand up for women's safety in the form of peaceful protest, demanding for change and more education. Much research suggests that what we show our children in the early stages of development forms their lifelong opinions, as Rebecca Joy Stamborough investigates in her essay surrounding early childhood development and influences of the media. The controversial themes within Sleeping Beauty are no longer suitable for its intended target audience, as we are influencing young people to grow up with these conceded views on subjects such as rape, and this could be the reason that these violent crimes against women are on the rise in Gen Z. Something that is often overlooked is how tied Disney are to Sleeping Beauty, and how much as a modern day audience we have turned a blind eye to the unconscious acceptance of promoting a film with clear sexual assault. The Disney logo is centered around Aurora's castle, and this is carried through into both Disneyland and Disney World as the most relatable and iconic branding of Disney. When studying the appropriateness of the film, it is important to realise that if Disney were ever to revoke Sleeping Beauty from the repertoire, they would be losing a significant amount of money, and this would affect the economics of films to come. So linking to a modern day audience, there are some particular areas of controversy and themes and concerns that I've highlighted as being most poignant in demonstrating the challenges to our present society. So feminism. As previously mentioned, Sleeping Beauty was originally praised in the 50s and 60s for its stance on feminism, as 70% of the dialogue is spoken by female characters, but carrying this forward into the present era isn't enough for it to make it as compelling as a feminist piece. Aurora is the quietest of all the Disney princesses, appearing in 18 minutes of the film with a total of 18 lines, and for a film that is called by her name, she's one of the minor characters, of the script and is only used to elaborate the prince's story. Arguably, the most prominent feature of women's position in society comes from the blessings given by the three fairies. The first blessing granted to Aurora is the gift of song, the second is the gift of beauty, and the third, obviously, is to be woken by a true love's kiss. These all show the superficial nature of being a woman, typical of the 50s era, but this still hasn't changed for a modern day woman. The traits of femininity are to be stereotypically beautiful, and it is seen as desirable to have a sweet-sounding, higher registered voice, and this ideology is being carried all the way through to the present day. There is a very clear message all the way through the piece, as there are in other Disney films such as Cinderella and Beauty and the Beast, that the sole purpose of a woman is to grow up, promise to an eligible man, get married, give them children, and live happily ever after, not even to mention the fact that Aurora is just 16 when she meets the Prince of 20 for the first time. If we continue to show future generations outdated versions of what was and should no longer be acceptable, we are only encouraging the idea that men have more status than women, and we are also almost projecting these opinions not only on young men, but we are teaching young women to accept this outdated fate. Beauty standards for women. So standardised ideas of what a woman should look like haven't changed from the 50s, and this is subconsciously coming from the ideology of a Disney princess. Regardless of hair colour or race, all Disney princesses follow the same rule. They are petite with big eyes, long flowing hair, and have beautifully clear skin, which has come from the imagination of a male. The present society of women is still taught to conform to these unwritten rules, otherwise you won't be seen as desirable to the opposite gender. So why is it that we still continue to show children things of this nature when we preach the fact of individuality and how no two people are the same? Aurora was modelled off the late Audrey Hepburn, as she was the current it girl of the time, but if re-released, would she look any different if we are still encapsulating the same beauty standards today? We as a collective society are forcing young women to grow up with this closed mindset of unrealistic body image and are fueling future mental health issues. As Sarah Coyne suggests, that Disney princesses represent some of the first examples of exposure to the thin ideal. As women, we get it our whole lives, and it really does start at the Disney princess level at age 3 and 4. The rise of sexual assault. The rise of sexual assault, as previously mentioned, is for me and most others the most pressing issue with Sleeping Beauty, and is the foremost reason why it is no longer socially appropriate to be screened in the modern day. Prince Philip non-consensually kisses 16-year-old Aurora while she is unconscious to wake her from her slumber, and so here is where children are being taught, particularly young women, that consent isn't something that needs to be given for somebody to perform a physical act on you. At the time of production, the anti-rape movement hadn't begun as it took off in the 1970s, and so this wouldn't have been a taboo subject to include in a children's film, as societally there didn't seem to be a problem, as the culture was heavily impacted by misogynistic men who felt they had more power over women and could not be challenged. Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange was banned in 1973 for the violent portrayal of a rape, and although Sleeping Beauty shows a toned down animated version of this, there is still a clear element of sexual assault, and by continuing to screen this to children, we are validating and encouraging this behaviour, which is a significant reason as to why this film is no longer and never should have been accepted as an appropriate film for children. On top of my previous points that don't satisfy sociological concerns that might not have been present at the time of release, there are also wider factors relating to the sexual assault that contribute to the film no longer being suitable for a modern audience. The 2014 remake of Sleeping Beauty, Maleficent, sees the removal of the unconsented kiss and marks the first time in over 300 years when the kiss of true love is not romantic or sexual, but rather maternal and emotional, as written by Linda Wolverton. The clear intention shift of the kiss proves that the original is not fit to be shown to a modern day audience, and that for it to be socially accepted there needed to be a significant change, which is why this version should be given the one to children, as it celebrates forgiveness and values emotion over sexual desires. So I leave you with my bibliography here. As I say, that Sleeping Beauty for me is one of, if not the most damaging Disney films to have been created, and it does not satisfy sociological concerns for a modern day audience, and therefore does not have any form of appropriateness to be continued to be shown to children of any age if we want to develop and move forward as a society. So thank you for listening. That is my presentation, and I'll leave you here with my bibliographies, which you've also got a copy of, and then I'll move on to my questions. Thank you.